They were a lot better against OU, but the Texas offensive line still has a long way to go if the Longhorns are going to be a playoff team again. We'll dive in on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We'll get to some sound from Steve Sarkisian talking about the way he coaches Arch Manning, and we'll also start to preview this Saturday's matchup with the Kentucky Wildcats. But first, my biggest concern with the 2025 Texas Longhorns remains the same. It's the offensive line. That didn't change after Red River. Yes, the Texas offensive line looked a lot better against Oklahoma than they did against Ohio State and Florida. It was definitely a step in the right direction, especially after the circus show that we saw in the swamp. But that group is nowhere close to a finished product, and I am nowhere close to calling them a strength of the team. I said it on Monday, and I said it yesterday. I believe Oklahoma has a top 5 defensive line in college football. So you should consider that when I give these statistics. But still, the following numbers aren't good enough for Texas to win an SEC championship or make it back to the college football playoff for the third consecutive year. Let's dive in. Texas ran the ball 32 times against Oklahoma. 8 of those 32 runs went for negative yards. It's 25%. It's not very good. More than 51% of Texas's rushing attempts against Oklahoma went for 3 yards or less. More than half of their carries, 3 yards or less. That's also not very good. Of course, you had a couple of really long runs. You'll take those. Those inflated the averages a little bit. You had that 29-yard Arch Manning dagger on the zone read keeper in the fourth quarter. That was awesome. You had Trey Wisner's 37-yard run. That was the best run of the year for a Texas running back. But go back and watch that play. R. Mason Thomas, Oklahoma's stud defensive end, he was in the backfield. Trey Wisner just broke a tackle at the line of scrimmage and then got free and turned it into a huge play. Now, again, you take it, but it's not like there was a giant hole created by the Texas offensive line up front and Trey Wisner just found it and took off. No, that play was blown up in the backfield. Wisner just made somebody miss, and that's why it turned into Texas's most successful running back run of the year. Like the Longhorns had a couple of tight ends on that play who were there to block Thomas, and they both whiffed. And there are a couple of other Oklahoma defensive linemen that also kind of beat their man. They just overran the play. So, look, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm complaining about a 37-yard run. You take those whenever you can get them. Still a very, very positive play, but it wasn't, again, some giant hole that you could have driven a truck through, like you hear the announcers say on TV. We haven't seen too many of those this year. Still not enough running lanes for these Texas running backs to go through. In pass pro, you look at the box score against Oklahoma, and you see that the Longhorns only gave up 1 sack against a Sooner defense that was averaging more than 4 per game going in. That's great. What's not great is the 25 pressures that Texas gave up. It's better than the 35 they gave up in the swamp 7 days prior, but 25, like that's a level of pressure that is borderline unsustainable for Arch Manning to, number one, stay healthy, number two, live up to his full potential. For reference, Texas gave up 28 pressures in the Georgia game here at DKR last year, and we all remember how bad that was. So, Arch Manning got the ball out a lot quicker against Oklahoma than he had in any game this year. His average depth of target went from more than 20 yards against Florida to just over 4 yards against OU. And despite that, the much quicker passing game that the Longhorns had, which was clearly a part of their game plan, and thankfully it was because it worked, despite that, still 25 pressures allowed against OU. Not good enough. Nick Brooks, in his first career start, who I thought fared very well in the run game, he had a pass blocking grade of 14.7, according to Pro Football Focus. That's better than the 0.0 pass blocking grade he had against Florida, couldn't go anywhere but up there. And baby steps in the right direction. There's your glass half full viewpoint, but 14.7? Come on. Cole Hudson, who I thought had a really rough go against OU, he had a pass blocking grade of 18. This is out of 100, mind you. He and Nick Brooks were the two lowest graded players for the Texas offense. Those kind of numbers, pass blocking grades of less than 20, those are going to get your quarterback killed. Got to get better. Now, here's the good news. The current starting five for the Texas O-line has only played 6 quarters together, and they got better from quarters 1 and 2, the second half against Florida, to quarters 3 through 6 against Oklahoma. And they were significantly better in quarters 5 and 6, aka the second half in Dallas. So there's development and there's progression. And those are words that we have not used very often when talking about this Texas offensive line this year. That's the good. Hopefully they can continue to take steps. Also, more good news. The Longhorns' next 3 opponents, they don't have Oklahoma's defensive line. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, this isn't a stretch of San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston, but there are some opportunities for some confidence boosting for this offensive line and an opportunity to fix some things that plagued this group through the first half of the year. Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt, I know Vandy's a top 20 team. They're a great story right now. They don't have the athletes that Oklahoma has on the defensive line. They don't have the athletes that Texas has up front either. So you can win those games with imperfect offensive line play, but you'd like to see that new group of 5 that, again, has only started 1.5 games, if you will, together. You hope they can show you a little something these next 3 weeks. Perhaps this is a bit of a do-over for Steve Sarkisian and Texas offensive line coach Kyle Flood to get things right on the offensive line, because they clearly whiffed with their original starting 5. The group that they had to open up the year, not good against Ohio State. They got bullied at times against 3 cupcakes in the non-con, and we all saw what happened at Florida. This is their opportunity to get right. Okay, you changed some things up with your personnel. You had a bye week before SEC play. Get these guys coached up and developed to where you can make that group a lot better in the latter half of the year. Now, here's the difference. Unlike where you were going into the start of the year, you now have 0 margin for error. You've already lost twice. You've already lost once in the SEC. One more loss, it could spell the end of the Longhorns SEC title hopes and college football playoff hopes as well. So you've got these next 3 games. Talked about it yesterday. Texas is going to be favored in all 3 of these. Then after the bye week, you've got Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. 2 top 10 teams and a rivalry game against the Hogs thrown in the middle. You have to have your big boys ready for that stretch, because Georgia and A&M, they do have the athletes that Oklahoma has. So you got to make sure that those guys are better. This offensive line is never going to be elite. The question is, can they just continue to get better week over week? I think Brandon Baker has improved. I thought Nick Brooks got better, even though he was the lowest graded player on the Texas offense against OU. It was a much better showing for him against the Sooners than what we saw against the Gators. I think DJ Campbell at right guard is playing some of the best ball of his career in year 4. Trevor Gooseby, nice bounce back performance by him in Dallas. I think he's more than capable as a left tackle. So you've got some pieces there up front. If the answer to that is yes, and Texas does get better week by week here in the second half of the year, then the Longhorns have a legitimate shot to make a run at an SEC championship. If the answer to that question is no, and we're still talking about 25 plus pressures a game and 25% of your runs going for negative yards, then we could be talking about 2026 a lot earlier than we hoped. So again, the offensive line deserves some credit. I'm sure it sounds like I'm dunking on them a lot. They did a really good job considering the opponent that they were playing on Saturday, but still a lot of room for growth. And I don't know if that level of offensive line play is going to be enough to get the Longhorns where we want them to get. So hopefully they can continue to get better. What say you? What's your biggest concern for this team at the midway point of 2025? Is it the offensive line? Is it something else? What's your level of confidence for the Big Uglies up front moving forward? Would love to hear from y'all. All right, we've got some sound from Steve Sarkisian's Monday presser talking about Arch Manning and an interesting nugget from Sark on the way he coaches his quarterbacks. We'll let you hear from the head coach up next, right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. They have more IIHS top safety picks than anybody else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all of the details. Mazda has the same intention with how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but in a Mazda vehicle. Smooth handling, intuitive controls, and how about this? All-wheel drive is standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence throughout almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. And also some love to our friends at Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with their brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with all of your favorite Peloton instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I've been a Peloton user for a long time. I've had a cycle for years now. I absolutely love it. The personalized class recommendations, great for me. They're going to keep you engaged, and you're going to get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level every single week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the all-new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. You know, I said this before the OU game, and I still think it holds true after. A lot of Arch Manning's best plays this year have been off schedule, right? The play starts to break down a bit. Arch rolls out, extends the pocket, extends the play, and then boom, he's able to find someone open down the field, and it turns into a pretty nice gain. We've seen a bunch of that from him in the Texas offense this year, and we saw it a few more times during the game on Saturday. Steve Sarkisian was asked about that on Monday, right? Those kind of scramble drill plays and whether or not he coaches Arch Manning in the offense on how to do those. A bit of a longer cut from Coach Sark here, but I think it's interesting. Here was his response on Monday.
You know, and I know there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I don't overcoach that aspect of the game. You know, you'll hear the players talk about Sunny Glen Park. That's the park that's down the street from my house off of Red Beam Avenue in Torrance, California. That, you know, when you're at the park, it's like me, you, and a couple other guys, and it's like, okay, get open. I'm all-time quarterback. And so when you go to scramble, yeah, there's some parameters that you put around it, which we do. But at the end of the day, you got to play. And now you're playing the game of football, and part of that comes from playing together too. And now these guys have 6 games under their belt, and they have a little better feel for Arch of where he's moving and when he's moving and where that ball can go. But that's where you recruit football IQ as well. And I think DeAndre's got a great one. DeAndre's touchdown, that wasn't the route he was supposed to run. You know, he was on a different route. But when the coverage busted, the feel from DeAndre and then Arch to recognize it to make the throw. And that's no different than some of the third down things that are happening there as well. And so Emmett's got a great feel. Ryan's got a great feel. But at that point, you need to play football. But then for the quarterback, it comes down to decision-making, right? When it becomes, you know, you're playing and when it can become reckless. And we never want to be reckless in those situations with the ball because the ball's paramount in the program. And so, but Arch has the ability to do that. And I'm sure he and his uncles and his brother have been in the backyard, you know, messing around playing, and that's what those moments become. And he, you know, he definitely has been doing that. And in the last 2 weeks, we're really starting to see more of that. And it's become a weapon for us.
So a lot to dive into there. How about that? The one offensive touchdown that Texas scored, the passing touchdown from Arch Manning to DeAndre Moore. You know, that's not your stereotypical scramble drill by any stretch, but that was DeAndre Moore changing up his own route because he saw Oklahoma had a breakdown in coverage and he found some open space and he ran there and Arch Manning found him and boom, you're celebrating on the Oklahoma side of the field. That was pretty fun. more to dive into there. Steve Sarkisian says he doesn't overcoach those. And he made the metaphor about playing ball with your friends in the park or in the schoolyard. And again, that stuff has worked. And going back to the first segment, talking about the offensive line, I think there's a lot more of these plays coming up because I don't think Arch Manning is going to have a ton of clean pockets when he actually does drop back and hold on to the ball for more than a couple of seconds. I think we'll see a lot more of that stuff in the second half of the year. Give the receivers a lot of credit. Obviously, Arch Manning deserves credit. He's the guy extending the plays. He's the guy throwing the football. Like, you give the quarterback a ton of credit anytime a play like that is able to go down. But looking back at the Oklahoma game, you had that DeAndre Moore play. There's a couple of other things that stand out. Like, look, getting Emmett Mosley back has helped a lot. And as Steve Sarkisian said, if you're looking at this from a macro standpoint, the fact that Texas has now played 6 games together, it's definitely led to an increase in chemistry between quarterback and wideouts. But the OU game in particular, a couple of plays come top to mind where Arch Manning was rolling out to his left, like right before he was about to get to the line of scrimmage and an Oklahoma player was about to hit him. He was able to find somebody open. One time to Ryan Wingo, another time to DeAndre Moore on a separate play. And again, everyone credits the quarterback for those, but the wide receivers have to find holes in the coverage to get open. They have to free themselves up. They have to get to a place where their quarterback can find them. And they got to make sure their quarterback knows where they're going to be. And in both of those instances, Wingo and Moore were able to do that. Those plays might look easy on replay, and it might look like the guy's wide open, but those are not simple plays at all. Like, not only are those cross-body throws from Arch, but it takes a high level of recognition from the wide receiver to find a spot where he can be open against an elite defense. And I think on both of those plays that I'm talking about, Oklahoma had like 3 defenders in the area, yet the Texas receiver was able to find a soft spot for Arch Manning, and the Longhorns were able to find a way to complete the pass. So all of this time together has definitely helped. I mean, Arch Manning looks like a different quarterback these last 3 weeks than the guy we saw in weeks 1 through 3 of the season. And we're not asking questions about the chemistry between Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo anymore. You're seeing something evolve with Arch Manning and DeAndre Moore right now. I know Emmett Mosley's only played in a couple of games, but he looks like a real threat for Texas on the outside. Parker Livingston's been great all season long. Obviously, that 3rd and 7 rollout play from Arch Manning with Texas backed up deep in their own territory, that was a great throw. The chemistry between those two guys, they're roommates. Not sure if y'all knew that. Sarcasm. It's definitely there too. So that's great to see. Again, I don't think you can live on those, but the fact that you have a quarterback and a group of receivers that can make things happen when the play breaks down. And there were some things in the Oklahoma game where it was the first time all year we've seen the offense do that well. That's not the case with the scramble drill plays. We saw that against Florida. We saw that against Ohio State. We saw that against San Jose State and UTEP and Sam Houston as well. Like, I think it's safe to say that this offense has the ability to do that. And again, the more reps these guys get together, I think the more that part of the offense is going to improve. And when you have an offensive line that's not always the best in pass pro, you're going to need some of those schoolyard type of plays to work to be a good part of your offense. Again, don't want to rely on those. You still want to have the quick passing game, get the ball out of Arch's hands quickly. Obviously, if your run game can be productive, that's going to make life easier for everybody in that passing attack as well. But knowing that that is there for Texas, and I like that Steve Sarkisian doesn't overcoach things, right? It's like, we got parameters, but I just let Arch Manning go do his thing. And I let the receivers go do this thing. And there's a clear trust between those two sides. And those are fun to watch, man. Those are highlight reel type of plays. And those can be backbreakers for an opposing defense because they think they've got a play covered up. And they think it's about to be a sack or a throwaway at worst. And all of a sudden, Arch Manning at the last second, right before he's about to get hit, is able to find a receiver open downfield for a first down. Those are fun. And those are killers for an opposing defense. And I like seeing those, and hopefully we see more of those moving forward. So interesting there. Good little nugget and a behind-the-scenes peek from Steve Sarkisian for some plays that have worked very well for Texas so far in 2025. All right, one segment to go. Let's take a look back at last year's game against Kentucky. What did the Horns learn in that matchup that they could use again in this weekend's matchup? We'll get into it next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a shout out to our friends at Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is very exciting. But getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh. Maybe your guest room needs some new bedding. Maybe you just need a whole makeover at home. The good news, our friends at Wayfair are here to help. They have everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables. They are your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and every budget. And they've got free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, so you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. And y'all know the closer we get to the holidays, the more places start to raise their shipping costs. You don't have to worry about those delivery fees with our friends at Wayfair. So instead of stressing about getting your home ready for the holidays, you can actually enjoy the holiday season with friends and family. Get organized, get refreshed, and get ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. WAYFAIR.com. It's Wayfair, every style, every home. And also some love to Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. More than 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Again, if you need parts for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. You don't have to wait 5 to 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. You get what you need delivered very, very fast. So join Supply House and join their Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Head over to supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, final segment of a Wednesday edition. That's how you say that word, of Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Let's talk Texas, Kentucky, as we sit 3 days away from kickoff in Lexington. This is only the third meeting all time between the Longhorns and the Wildcats. The first matchup came back in 1951 here in Austin. Texas won that game 7-6 against the 6th-ranked Wildcats. 48,000 people at Memorial Stadium for that one. 10 combined turnovers for that game. Only one total touchdown scored by either team. It was James T. Jones finding Don Barton for a first quarter passing score for the Longhorns. That was the difference in the game. Bear Bryant was the head coach at Kentucky. I was not there for that. I was there for the second meeting between these two teams. That happened last year, also here in Austin. A game the Longhorns won 31-14. That one was played in front of more than 100,000 fans at what is now DKR, Texas Memorial Stadium. So a lot has changed between those two games, and a lot has changed with the stadium as well. More points, less turnovers. We're going to focus more on that 2024 game, right? I think there's a little bit more we can take from that one than the one back in the 1950s. Of course, you've got plenty of new faces on both sides, but a lot is the same, including the two head coaches for now. Texas had its best rushing output of the 2024 regular season against Kentucky. They went for 251 yards on the ground as a team. Trey Wisner, 26 carries for $158. Jaden Blue, 15 carries for 96. Like, the Horns were able to run away literally from Kentucky with what they did on the ground. Can they do something like that again? Here's the good news. Texas is coming off its best rushing game against a real team so far this season. And they did that against an OU defense that was top 5 in rush defense going into Dallas. That Sooner defensive line, I'll say it again, may be the best in college football, especially up the middle. And Texas was able to still put together a pretty productive day on the ground. That got even better as the game wore along. Kentucky doesn't have those bodies up front. They don't have a top 5 rush defense. Matter of fact, Kentucky's rush defense ranks 86th in the country. They're giving up more than 153 yards per contest. That's 12th place in the SEC. They're also 14th in the SEC in rushing touchdowns allowed this year. They've only played 5 games. Everybody else in the SEC has played 6 games. I have no idea why Kentucky has already had 2 bye weeks. I feel bad for them because they don't have another bye the rest of the year. But in 5 games, one fewer than every other team in this league, they are third to last in terms of rushing touchdowns allowed. Point is, teams have been able to run against these guys this year. And some other good news for Texas. Sounds like the Longhorns are going to be getting C.J. Baxter back. We'll get the first injury report of the week tonight. But, I mentioned both Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue going off against Big Blue last year. I would like to have both heads of your two-headed monster available in this game. Trey Wisner ran like a chicken with his head cut off last week against Oklahoma. C.J. Baxter, I think, is a big upgrade over some of the other running backs that Texas has trotted out on the field recently. So you have both of those guys with some confidence with your run game going up against a vulnerable Kentucky front seven. I think that's all good news. So there's your offensive stat, early offensive stat for Texas against Kentucky. The defensive stat, of course, the Texas defensive line had a great day against the Sooners. They had their way against the OU offensive line. Last year against Kentucky and that win in Austin, Texas had a season best 6 sacks and 11 tackles for a loss. They also held UK, to 21 rushing yards total in that game. So Texas maybe playing with some confidence. They sacked John Mateer 5 times. They had 7 TFLs in Dallas. Feels like the pass rush, feels like the defensive front as the engine revving a little bit. They also held OU to just 48 yards rushing. Hey, give the Sooners some credit. Kentucky only had 21 last year. OU had a bunch more, 48. Embarrassing for them. But basically, the point I'm trying to make here is a lot of what Texas did well against OU last week is what they did well last year against Kentucky, and the Horns won that game by 17. Ironically enough, the Horns beat Oklahoma by 17. I think we'd all sign up for a 17-point road victory. That'd be a win and a cover for Texas at Kentucky. So every game, it's more of a big deal in Red River. We talked about the stats with rushing yards, and the team that is able to win on the ground wins way more often than not in that Red River shootout. But it's something that holds true in most college football games. If you can win on the lines of scrimmage, you are way more likely to win the football game. Texas was able to dominate up front. They ran all over the Kentucky defense, and Kentucky, again, 21 rushing yards for the game. They couldn't get anything going on the ground against the Longhorns. If we see Texas dominate the lines of scrimmage like we just saw, then the Longhorns should win this game, and they should win this game going away. And again, that's what we are all looking for. Don't let there be any sort of hangover effect after OU. Got to get right back on the wagon and find a road win at night in the SEC. I like the matchup for Texas. Now they got to go out and do it. We'll talk way more about this game over the next couple of days, but that'll do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, all of those great things. Really do appreciate y'all's continued support of Locked On Longhorns. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They have you covered all of your sports betting needs, expert analysis, game picks, the lock of the day. They're giving out free picks every single day on that show. You can find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. But that'll do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.